Hi, gang sexy. Something new here. So I've been playing in between things, little break, and playing Kharkov battles from Compass Games. Okay. I guess it reminds me of the old SPI Typhoon, and I know there's some other game. Was it like Victory in the West system, whatever it's called, where you have the strength chit counters that go underneath the units, and whatever the unit's code is or their strength thing is, that's what the strength number they'll get is. And then if they lose a step, you flip it over to the backside and it reduces it. Um, hadn't had one of these out since Typhoon, and this is actually pretty cool. It's a small footprint here. This is the second Battle of Kharkov, and the basic victory conditions were Germans had to take either both of these here or at least one of them, and then the Russians had three, and then you do kind of a balancing act. Well, I got news for you. I watched oh shoot, I can't remember who it was, uh, play it, and they were able to break their Russians out. And I agree, when we play these things, dice rolls mean a lot, and whether or not you can bring enough strength to bear in an attack. Well, they've also got this weird rule in this game where units that are within 3 hexes, Soviet units that are within 3 hexes of a German combat unit and not within command range of a committed headquarters, I guess, or not within command range. Yeah, and for headquarters, he has to be committed. They have to roll on this special chart that it's like a random events chart for each and every unit that is in that state. Well, that caused me a nightmare down here for the Russians. Fortunately, once the Germans attacked, it triggered a headquarters down here, so everything became active anyhow. And the Russians did end up losing a step in an attack that was just futile because on the what do they call it, the Soviet command and control table, the unit had to move to the nearest uh, German unit and do a prepared assault. Okay, which means he was attacking whether he wanted to or not, and he was already adjacent to one that he just adjacent to him actually, so he got his butt handed to him. Um, it seems to, and I don't know much about the second battle of Kharkov. I need to do some reading. I know what the pincer moves were coming from here and from here for the Germans, but at the same time, the Soviets were starting their assault on Kharkov, trying to take Kharkov, and trying to move through and go down here and take Dnepropetrovsk. Okay, major city down here on the river. You can't see it, but it's down yonder. So I started to apply that same theory, but I'm gonna tell you what, these Soviet units, they are not strong enough or tough enough to deal with these Germans. Unless you get some super die rolls. And I did get some good die rolls, but they could never, these Soviets could almost never get the 5, 6, 7, 8 to 1 odds like the Germans could, because the Germans have all these B and A units. I mean, they have a mass of them, and they get a reinforcement stack with about 6 units that are Bs and As. I think there's a C in there somewhere. And you blindly draw your strength shit out of there and put it underneath there, and like I said, you don't apply one until that unit's in combat. So if you've got an A strength unit and you haven't had any combat with him and you're moving him into an attack, you don't get to pull a chit for his strength until you go to execute the combat. So you might end up drawing an A that's only worth 4 instead of an A that's worth 14. All right. Uh, had a couple German units that drew some weak ones. I think I had a couple Bs that drew 4s. But once they got this mass of reinforcements that came in down in here, uh, I think it was on a turn with 2 support points. Yeah, 2 support points. So the support points are how you flip you'll notice the German headquarters, that one says U, unsupported. Actually, that's it. Oh, I flipped him. He was actually supported. But you take your support points and you apply them to one of the headquarters units, and then those units become supported and they can attack and do their thing. Other than that, they can't. If they're not supported, they can't. Well, 2 support points on the first turn, I dropped at 1st Panzer, who had like 5 units come on, and then 6th Army up here. I'm sure this is 1st Panzer Group. And 6th Army, because I need to make sure I kept this little island of Germans here in supply, so I had to keep this open. So I had to give them support so that they could make sure they could push the Soviets away from Kharkov and then keep this road network here open for the supply lines, or this island here open. And then I put the other one on 1st Panzer because they had a massive unit sitting right here, and the Soviets were thin because they were trying to push. So sure enough, it only took 2 turns, and the 1st Panzer blew in. There was nothing for the Soviets. The Soviets did not have the numbers to pull back, the units to get back here. They tore a headquarters up, tore pretty much an entire army up, crossed their pontoon bridges, okay, took Izium, and they're going to take Kupiansk, but they got in behind all these units here. And with doing that, because of the line of German units, all of these Soviets went out of supply. 2 of them here were already out of supply. They went into isolation and they attrited out. So, I mean, look, here's the losses. There's the stack of Soviet units up there in that box. So this, to me, was just a total smoke by the Germans. Like I say, I don't know much about the second battle of the Second Kharkov. I know there were 3 of them, right? And I'm sure the first one was when the Germans dashed during Barbarossa or whatever, Case Blue, whatever part it was they got here. But I don't see the Soviets taking any of these objectives except for maybe breaking out down here to get one, but one's not going to be enough. And the Germans can now counter with all these mobile forces up here, and they can backtrack on these Soviets. Plus, these guys are out of supply now. They weren't going to get supply back unless they come back and attack back into here. I don't see that happening, and I don't see the Soviets with these little small 2 and 3 strength units trying to break a hole back through here. So, unless I'm doing something completely wrong, this was just a German blowout. They just trashed the Russian army in this one here. All right, so this is Kharkov battles before and after Fall Blau. So this is like the sister game to the Fall Blau game, which I have sitting on the shelf up here. And I may eventually need to get that one out on the table too. System's not real hard. Not a boatload of pages in the rules, because the rule book for this game here has the scenarios in it too. So the rules are only 20 plus pages, not even that, maybe right around 20 pages. Good clean counters, nice maps. These standard counter size. The chipboard on them is a little thicker than most counters, but they're good, solid. You can clip them with your metal organ lamination clippers. And the map's not over aggressive. It looks good and completely functional, and there's no funny looking graphics on it or anything. And it's a small footprint. You could probably play this in one sitting. It's only 6 turns. I got to turn 5 before I called this, because there's no way the Russians are going to be able to reverse the flow with this one right here. You know, at least not the way I roll dice. But then again, I was rolling some good numbers for most of the attacks. All right, so let's wrap this thing up. I'm calling this a German major victory. I'll look at the victory conditions later to make sure, but they were going to take that anyhow before the Russians could touch anything. And they kept this pocket here open too, so that sort of made sealing this. I mean, come on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there were 2 isolated ones. That was 12. And all those headquarters cut off from their supply sources over here. And like I say, you don't have to use the roads or anything. It's just unlimited number. But the Germans just cut all that stuff off. All right, there you go. Wrapped up. Kharkov battles, the second battle of Kharkov. Let's get this posted so y'all can see what's going on. Talk to you soon.